r/AskReddit by Reddit tells. Hiring managers of Reddit, what are some telltale signs that your candidate is making things up? A candidate once said something like proficient in both Mac and HP. Sounds like a Mac user who doesn't understand PCs. Having interviewed quite a few candidates, I've come to accept that many people will try to BS their way through something they have a dabbling knowledge in. That's alright. When I ask a direct question and the person is trying to work it out on the fly to come up with an answer that sounds correct, I get some great insight into their troubleshooting abilities. This only works if you know what it is you are talking about though. If you've never heard of Ansible, please don't try to tell me what a great database application it is. At the end of the day though, my favorite answer and the one most likely to get a candidate with limited experience onto the next phase is to just admit you don't know, but that you'll look it up / Google it and be able to answer the question next time. Most recent candidate we hired did just that. I passed the question I'd asked them on to the next person to have time to do the interview, and they were asked again. They must have had the right answer this time because I'm training them now. Well, I was testing a potential welder once. He showed up in shorts, muscle shirt, and flip-flops to do a weld test and interview. I turned him away citing safety concerns about his wardrobe and never rescheduled. Figured he was too dumb for me to deal with. Funny you should mention this. There was a commercial for Magic Mike XXL where Channing Tatum was welding and then did a sexy dance. My fiance the welder scoffed and said, "Oh come on. Who welds in shorts and a tank top?" I speak enough gringo Spanish to get by, and back in the day when I was a hiring manager, if anybody put fluent in Spanish on their resume, I'd walk into the interview room and introduce myself and start the interview in Spanish. The looks of panic from the kids who'd taken, like, 3 years of high school Spanish before college were priceless. Edit, a word. Someone did that to me once, but in German. I minored in German in college and the person interviewing me spoke less German than I did, thankfully. I would never lie about language fluency on a resume. It is way too easy to disprove if just one person knows a little of it. When you're doing a video interview and you can watch them try to Google stuff in the reflection of their glasses. Small props for being clever though. He was paraphrasing the question back to me as a way to use the voice assistant. Guess I'll wear contacts next time. We have had many instances where the candidate would look to the right of the monitor and then repeat something word by word. They had a more experienced friend feeding them answers from behind the monitor. We have had people take this a step further and lip sync the answer from someone off camera. We have had folks wearing a headphone in one ear while clearly responding to our voices from a computer speaker, and they repeated each question as we asked it. Hey, you aren't going to work, but can we get the number of the guy who has actually been answering our questions? He seems to know his shit. One woman I interviewed literally took a pause and read the answers to the questions straight off of Google online Skype interview. I noticed it because there were really weird pauses and Googled it myself and literally followed along like subtitles. As someone who has hired many technicians in IT positions, I'm amazed at how many people would fake highly technical knowledge. I remember I needed a telecom engineer with very specific knowledge of a very specific voice system. I was getting suspicious of this one candidate, so I started asking about the exact syntax of command lines, and this guy was actually throwing out made up commands. I was both fascinated and annoyed. My last dev job I was asked how much I knew about a certain variation of SQL. I've been a strong SQL guy for years, but haven't used this type. I just said yeah, I haven't used that, but I'm a top-notch Googler. Got the job, in part because I appeared truthful. Void ring 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 banana phone. Maybe more of an answer about general competence, but in my observation the smartest people are comfortable saying they don't know something, or acknowledge limitations in their knowledge or experience. Naive or bluffing candidates want to project an air of knowing everything, which is implausible. Another signal is how eager they are to go into depth. I interview programmers and technical staff, so I like to ask them about the project they are most proud of. I listen carefully and ask a few questions about how they worked through some thorny tech aspects. I understand that software is a team effort, but the legitimate contributors are eager to talk about technical details of what they built. The ones who just attended meetings and rarely contributed much struggle to say anything of substance. That is quite telling in my view. I work at an architecture firm, and I kid you not, a candidate attached one of our projects in her portfolio. Exactly same third rendering. It wasn't even listed on the company website. How she got it is still baffling. The hiring manager just played along. How crazy would it be if she had created it and someone at the firm got a hold of it? She created it on Fiverr for one of your staff to meet his deadline. Duh. That actually sounds like something you should have called out or followed up on. If she didn't do the work, then who gave her access to it? If she did do the work, then who's taking credit for it? 1. They ramble and the answers make absolutely no sense. 2. They never answer the question asked. They talk about something they are comfortable with in the hopes I don't notice that they didn't answer. 3. Give them an easy test. One that, if you knew your skill you should pass easily and within 5 minutes. If it takes longer, you either lead on your resume or suck at what you say you are good at. Only want to throw an aside note on this. I used to work in a large company and was somewhat involved in some hiring. Had a great candidate for a job and I was impressed by him. During his second interview he was an anxious mess and the higher ups were not impressed by his answers at all. They ended up passing on him and he went on to a smaller company and did extremely well. Dude was great, but he got in his head and became super anxious since he had a lot of personal things riding on getting that job and was worried about being able to support his family. I hire people for a fast food job all the time so it really doesn't have many requirements. It's quite interesting when at the interview some people will add all these other places they have worked. Of course they don't have contact numbers on any of them. Especially when you ask a customer service related question something along the lines of a customer received the wrong pizza and is calling us unhappy about it. How do you handle the situation when they've worked half a dozen fast food jobs but stumble over it super hard? It's suspicious. I don't even care if they don't know or if they have work experience, but if they seem disorganized or appear to be straight up lying I won't hire them. You know what I find funny about fast food jobs? When I was desperate for a job because I got laid off, a fast food joint in my neighborhood literally didn't hire me because I overqualified. It was one of those walk in with your resume type of places. They felt that I would dump them for a different job within the next week. I was looking at the manager like, if I had other prospects, do you think I'd be here begging for a job outside my field? I was the store manager for a Korean woman and I ran her anime/pop culture type store. The way she wanted me to conduct interviews was how they do them in a lot of Asian countries. Hire them for a day and see how they do. This is all well and good and I prefer to watch people and see if they are good for the job, but this is America and if you tell someone to come in for training they think they got the job. So they would come in for their interview/training day and I'd ask all the normal questions and add in what anime or gaming stuff do they like to see, if they are knowledgeable in the stuff they like, and if they are willing to learn about other stuff they haven't seen or played. A lot of the time I'd ask if they play any MMO type games, and if so what is their favorite, and I had people telling me yeah I play WoW. I ask what's their favorite dungeon and they go on making stuff up, or they would tell me about the Leroy Jenkins dungeon, which means they probably haven't played, but have just watched that vid. There was one guy though that I thought was bullshitting me, and I asked him what server he was on this time to really see if he knew any of the servers. He said Brendan, this is the server I was a guild leader on. So I said oh I've heard of that server. What guild were you part of? I might know it. He said it was one of the biggest on the server. So I played dumb and threw out a few small name guilds to see if he was telling the truth or not, and he said no to all of them. I said my guild's name and he said yeah that's the one. I asked what his screen name was and he told me. I actually remembered him from when I was the guild leader. So I said hey do you know Fee? He goes yeah that was the leader. Why? I said you're fucking hired, but I'm pissed that you ignored me every time I asked if you wanted to join raid night. This will be proof that you can listen to my directions for once. Off topic, but this question reminded me of this story. Thanks for watching the video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Comment with your own personal interview stories. Subscribe for more.